Hello, Amrita Baba.
Hello, Ludovic.
Happy to welcome you for a second interview on the channel. The first one was 4 years ago, and it seems like it was not yesterday, but last week. But
Mm,
time flies.
it
And
does.
you're the founder of Amrita Mandala, which is a pragmatic, modern lineage of tantric yoga. And it contains practices for lay peoples with families, work, and responsibilities. And your teachings are presented in a unique, non-sectarian way that combines a variety of teachings, schools, and masters. It's a shortcut that I'm saying, but it's what I understand of your way. And I wanted to have you again on the channel so we could talk in detail of these teachings and Amrita Mandala. So for my first question, uh, could you provide an overview of the key practices offered by Amrita Mandala, maybe to present and to explain what are these paths and teachings?
Okay. Thank you very much for the second invitation. Time definitely does fly by.
Mm.
Okay, so, well, there is just like in all spiritual paths, spiritual methods, there are like a varying number of practices, varying number of techniques, which is one thing, and very important thing, of course, when we discuss path to full enlightenment, path to Buddhahood, and especially in the context of Tantra and Dzogchen. Of course, it is also important in the context of Sutra, essential. But I think that something that is as important with practices is the theory of the practice, the theoretical understanding what the path is, and then what is the goal, and then where we are in the beginning. So I think it is absolutely essential to have a good theoretical understanding. In Buddhism, they speak of this as the view. So having a clear view, having a clear understanding of theory. And when it comes to this theory, many Mahasiddhas, we mainly in Amrita Mandala, we are kind of non-sectarian because, we practice, for example, Guru Yoga with Buddhist masters, Buddhist Mahasiddhas, but we also practice with Hindu Mahasiddhas and even Taoist Mahasiddhas, Taoist immortals. So in that sense, we are non-sectarian, but our philosophical stance, philosophical view is Buddhist.
Mm.
So, we have the same concepts like in Mahayana Buddhism, emptiness, compassion, shamatha, vipassana, sutra, tantra, dzogchen, and then just to mention some key concepts, and then we simply apply this view of Buddha Dharma into all practices that we do. And something that I have spent a lot of time studying myself in practice as well as teaching is understanding what Buddhahood actually is and what it is in detail.
Mm.
So, in the world of Tantra, as you might know, as you probably know, you know, it is an esoteric path, esoteric training system, which means that if I used like a simple secular translation for Tantra, I could call it energy work. But this energy work isn't just some random energy work, but it necessarily has to have lots of details, lots of finesse. And why is that? This is because awakening, enlightenment, awakening experiences, and that take us to the goal of full enlightenment, Buddhahood, they happen where? They happen in our subtle body or subtle bodies, in our energetics. Usually or often when Buddhist meditation or meditation in general is discussed, it is said that it affects the mind. So what is mind? Mind is thoughts, emotions, memories, dreams, fantasies, nightmares, traumas, self-delusion, and so on and so on. But so that's one way, kind of conceptual way to understand what mind is. But mind is also energetical. So this is like an interesting point about Tantra, that Tantra works with energy. Of course, Tantrics also need to understand Sutra perspective, Sutra application, Sutra practices, but Tantra is mainly working with subtle bodies, energetical bodies, the mind in energetical form, right? So how about then when we say subtle body or subtle bodies, what does that mean? I remember many years ago when I was studying this and figuring out myself, what is this whole practice about? Where does it happen? When I started my practice first in Zen Buddhism, and then I switched to the side of Tantra. I studied with my tantric master, and I was trying to figure out, what actually happens when I start chanting certain mantras or doing some breathing practices or visualizations, mudras. Where does it actually happen? And long story short, I've spent so many years in retreat practice and studying in detail, figuring out what these subtle bodies are. Often I felt that when I read some Hindu classical texts or Buddhist classical texts, I kind of felt that, okay, I understand all of these about nadis and channels and drops and prana and Chalung Tigle and chakras and all of these things, but I kind of felt that I want to understand it in detail. I want to have a totally clear 100% understanding of energetics when it comes to the process of awakening and attaining this enlightenment thing. So the way I see it is that, and this is what has been told since in ancient Vedic texts, since about 10,000 years ago at least, as well as has been said in Buddhist theory when they speak of three kayas, three bodies. I agree that there are three bodies. I never disagreed with that, but now I understand like how it actually works, what this Buddhahood is. So we obviously have physical body made of physical tissues, physical cells. Then we have what I like to call it by the name astral body, simply because this term is quite well known. So astral body, which is in the shape of the physical body, it doesn't extend outside the physical body, astral body. And astral body is the grosser of the subtle bodies. But astral body is the first one of our subtle bodies, and very important part when it comes to enlightenment. You cannot, if we really talk about Buddhahood, we cannot kind of subside or ignore the astral body. Whatever you call it, you cannot ignore it, because it stores selfishness. In in Buddhism we discuss 3 poisons or 5 poisons. So selfishness is stored there, but most importantly, trauma, psychological trauma, is stored mainly in the astral body. So astral body is one of those subtle bodies. And the second one, the subtler of the two, is what I call by the name, again because it's commonly known, causal body. Causal body. And causal body is also inside the physical body. We are talking, if we talk of astral channels, they are kind of, if we think in terms of music, we have bass, if we think of a piano, grand piano, it has bass notes on the left hand side and then higher notes on the right hand side. So astral body is kind of like bass notes. Their frequency range is lower, and then causal body, higher notes, higher frequencies. And in both subtle bodies, we have their own channel systems. So in causal body, you have nadi channels inside the body, but it also expands outside the body and creates the aura, the auric field. And also auric field contains or connects with this very tall, very long vertical pillar. So it extends, it's about the width of human body. It's like your own shoulders. So it extends downwards from the pelvic floor, about 5-6 meters down, and also from top of the head, from upwards, again 5-6 meters. So there's this long tube or long pillar, and then the aura at the center of it, and then astral body and physical body. So this is the full continuum. And referring back to those classical texts, for example, they speak of, in Hindu systems, they speak of, for example, koshas, different koshas. And with all respect, it just never kind of made sense to me. But I've discovered that this 3-body theory, from ancient Vedic texts, when they speak of 3 dehas, Trideha, and in Buddhism Trikaya, it makes sense. And when we understand that causal body is the subtler of the subtle bodies, astral body is the grosser of the subtle bodies, and then all these 2 subtle bodies are like a continuum with the physical body. So this is like a basic understanding, basic theory of what we use in Amrita Mandala. And then we simply apply different practices, different techniques to sort it out. And the way how this relates to the paths, in Amrita Mandala we have the path of wisdom and clarity, which is the method clearing out the causal body. This is where the causal body is where this jnana or prajna, wisdom, emptiness is realized. Okay, that's causal body terrain. causal body practice. So path of wisdom and clarity. And then we call the practices and the method for clearing out the astral body the path of healing and light. So we have like a separate sets of practices for each, because again, one is like high notes, one is like low notes of piano, and you could basically use just one set of practices and over time cover both subtle bodies and attain Buddhahood. But it would take a lot of time. It would take like many decades of really committed practice, and that's why we have two sets of practices. Actually, we have three sets of practices. The website hasn't been updated in a while, I think. And the third path we have is the path of health and great bliss, which are the physical practices. I have taught all these physical practices with an emphasis of recognizing basic nature, or physical practices together combined with tantric elements such as mantras. I've taught them for years, but I just recently gave that path a name, like a third path.
And to elaborate on maybe the more common one in the Buddhist world, wisdom and clarity, can you just explain the different stages or different practices that we can find in this? Is it the classical tantra with deities and completion stage and the tumo? I don't know.
Yes. So, yes, of course, it has to be. I think that tantric methodology in general, whether we are talking about Hindu Tantra, I have mostly practiced Shaiva and Shakta Tantra, or whether we are talking about Hindu Tantras or Buddhist Tantras, all this methodology has been figured out long time ago. So we understand about deities, we understand about mudras and mantras, we understand about breathing practices and visualizations, right? But then when it comes to, Buddhist Tantra and Buddhism and Hinduism have different emphasis in terms of how their practices, how their methods have been designed. As you know, Buddhism and Shakyamuni Buddha, he felt that it was necessary to emphasize this awakening, bodhi, this, and kind of put that first, make it very important, emptiness, selflessness. And that is an emphasis on purifying, clarifying the causal body first. Okay? And that's like a Vipassana meditation world. Whether we are talking about Sutra Vipassana or Tantra Vipassana, that's the world of Vipassana practice, Vipassana principle. And that's what Path of Wisdom and Clarity is about. A bit further, in Mahayana Buddhism, even in modern books by prominent Buddhist teachers, they sometimes mention a word, bhumi. They refer to 10 bhumis and this concept of bhumi. Concept of bhumi also has been at least 10,000 years in Rig Veda text. So just like many things, Buddhists simply took and adapted some of these concepts to create Buddha Dharma. But bhumi is an interesting thing. in Amrita Mandala, in classical Buddhism, they often speak of, in Mahayana Buddhism, they speak of 10 bhumis, dasha bhumi, or then in Vajrayana, they speak of 13 bhumis, 16 bhumis, 21 bhumis. It doesn't really matter whether we speak of 13, 16, or 21, because it's the same range, same journey. It's simply been chopped into 13 or 16 or 21 pieces. But when it comes to wisdom and emptiness, prana, prajna, pragya, and sunyata, then it is about causal body, transforming causal body and returning the whole nadi system, like you can see here around Guru Rinpoche, in its pure diamond-like state. And yeah, so like a rainbow diamond, when you shine a light on a diamond, it starts radiating rainbow colors. So it's about that.
You
So
talk
it's
about rainbow practice. There's a rainbow yoga practice in your teachings, and can you, because in the Buddhist world, the rainbow body is like an achievement after the time of death, and there's no remains or little one or just rainbows. And what's the practice of rainbow body yoga?
Well, rainbow body yoga is a set of 10 techniques, 10 exercises that are practiced as a sequence. But it focuses on the focus of that practice, the energetic design of that practice is to work with the causal body. So turning, we have this kind of that basic idea of vipassana is that we suffer, we are deluded because we believe that we are separate entities. We believe that this I, me, self really exists alone. And this separates us from anything we have outside and creates conflict, creates duality, dualistic positioning inside us, right? So the basic idea of Buddha Dharma is that you find that sense of self, you find that sense of I, me. We think about in terms of me and you, self and other, all day long, every day, isn't it? So the basic idea in Vipassana is that you kind of, when that happens, you pay attention to what that I is and where it is located in the body, in the head, where it is felt. And when you discover where it is, then you start becoming aware of it. And when you start becoming aware of it, you see through it. Well, first of all, you understand that, you realize that this sense of self, sense of me-ness, sense of I-ness is nothing but a bundle of memories, beliefs, impressions. And then we believe that these memories, beliefs, and impressions are me. But this is the delusion. This is the wrong belief that we have, that when we start looking at it, it starts peeling these different beliefs that we have about ourselves, start peeling away, and then we see right through it. And when we see through the self, we realize that there is no entity called me. There is no being that exists as a solid entity anywhere in me. And that moment when we see through that self, it is called an awakening experience. Awakening experience. They have different terms for this. In Zen that I used to practice, they call it kensho. If you have had like several kenshos, then you kind of become more familiar with this selfless state, selfless mind that is spontaneously and effortlessly awake. So this kind of mature state, awakening or kensho in Zen, is called satori. Satori. So kensho and satori are Zen terms. I remember discussing this with some of my friends who are Vajrayana lamas, and I think that Tulku Urgen Rinpoche call it Semgotropa. Oh, maybe I misremember that. Maybe he used Semgotropa for the first awakening experience. But whatever the term is in Tibetan systems, it is like a universal matter in Buddha Dharma, and I guess you could say in yoga and Dharma in general. But
It seems the first step is the same everywhere, and then it's not the same between the different systems. And in your systems, it's the first bhumi, isn't it?
yes.
And then there's the 13, the 1 to 13 bhumis, and it's in order, it's one after the other.
Yes, exactly. And just like in Mahayana scriptures, they speak of bhumis 1 through 10 as the grounds of samsara. So bhumi literally means ground. Ground is probably not the best translation in English, but it means like a field of vibration, you could say. So we have this sense of self, the self-delusion is split into these different grounds, different areas of vibration. So it's simply chopped into in 10 compartments, 10 areas, and this is 10 bhumis in classical Buddhism. And then we use the 13 bhumi model, where it means that bhumis 11, 12, and 13, which relates directly to certain energetic centers, both inside the body as well as I was speaking about that vertical energetic pillar that goes 5-6 meters below the body and 5-6 meters above. Right on top of that pillar and right at the bottom end of that pillar, there are these bhumis 11, 12, and 13, where there are energy centers, but they don't store karmic traces. So they always remain pure. Just like inside the body, in the head, in the heart, and in the gut, there are these pure centers that always remain pure. This understanding is both in Taoism. In Taoism, they speak of dantians, 3 dantians inside the body, and I've also been given this same 3 dantian teachings by one Dzogchen master. So yes, coming back to the 10 bhumis, so you said that usually methods agree on the first awakening, but then it starts. This is exactly one of the questions what I wanted to get to the bottom of that question, because to me it doesn't make sense. Whether it's somebody looking like me, somebody looking like you, somebody who is Indian, German, Chinese, living right now, or if it's man, woman, child, old person 300 years ago or 300 years from now, it doesn't make sense that the subtle bodies would be different with human beings. Assuming that we are talking about uh, Homo sapiens sapiens, our species. But to me, it makes sense that your subtle body is same as mine. Physically, we look different a little bit, but it doesn't matter. Our subtle bodies necessarily need to be same because uh, you know if we're talking about healthy men or women, it means that our psychological, mental, emotional functions and the ability to exercise mindfulness or cultivate awareness needs to be identical. So this is what I wanted to and have uh, over through many years of study have figured out that what is the universal basis for awakening, purification, and enlightenment, so that we wouldn't get, often when having discussions with practitioners from different systems or seeing discussions between teachers of different systems, they kind of cannot have a very deep and detailed discussion because they both are using their different terms, different terminology, different explanation, different theory of the practice. And I wanted to kind of sweep that aside and understand it from the point of view of the subtle bodies. Because you can't really, like myself, I used certain terms already: astral body, causal body, all these things. Somebody could have a different definition for astral body or causal body or bhumis. But my point is that it is possible to understand this great matter, this great endeavor of awakening and enlightenment, and from a really universal perspective.
What's the best the best method to go about these to open maybe these bhumis and to access and to purify the causal body?
Well, I have some experience, pretty solid experience from my Zen days, from Zen Buddhist, specifically Rinzai Zen practice, which gave me lots of experiences. And since then, I have briefly practiced with many teachers, Vajrayana teachers, teachers of Hindu Tantra, Kriya Yoga, and so on and so on. So what are the best practices? I cannot give like an absolute answer to this so that everybody would like the answer. It's a fascinating thing that there are so many people in the world, so many people who practice some types of meditation, some types of spirituality, and there are so many people who are interested in awakening or even enlightenment specifically. Having said that, I don't believe that there is one method for everybody. Yes, it is possible to have this conversation and have a method that comes from this universal basis. Okay, do you understand? Like universal basis, universal understanding. But it's still, I don't believe that, even if I follow Amrita Mandala and my students follow it, I don't believe it's the best for everybody.
Mm.
In Buddhism, they have this very key concept called merit, punya, which means readiness and willingness to practice. So, you need to have, when practicing any type of tantra, any type of Vajrayana practice, first of all, you do need lots of merit, which means that, Shakyamuni Buddha started teaching the Four Noble Truths, which means that you realize that you suffer. You can admit to yourself that I am really deluded, and because of this delusion I suffer. I am confused. And then he continued that, there are these practices and methods that can remove that suffering. But people's merit varies. I've learned this over the years when, some students have stayed with me, and many students have come and started studying with Amrita Mandala practices, started studying with me, and they were really enthusiastic, but then 1, 2, or 3 years later, they kind of wanted to do something else, which is absolutely fine. This is perfectly fine. But this is the reason why I say that to really be able to take seriously the path to full enlightenment or Buddhahood, one needs a number of really important requirements. And merit is one of those. Karmic connections is another. One has to have excellent karmic connections with a lineage and a teacher who really is a professional of that field. And then you need to have basic necessities. You need to have food and place to practice, and your life needs to be quite relatively easy. And then, of course, you need to practice. So it's not only about what is the best technique, what is the best method. It's a combination of things. And also there's the factor that when one wants to study and practice Tantra, you also need to have a very good connection with the teacher. And, if somebody is a very famous teacher, then at least you need to have a close connection with like a student of the teacher who teaches you. So this cannot be replaced. You need to have a one-on-one learning connection with a teacher, or like a teacher who represents a master. Yeah.
And there's one technique that you use in this path that is quite original or quite rare. It's the dynamic concentration one, the shouting practice.
Yeah,
And
sure.
it's in Dzogchen, we know the home pet, but it's one time, sometimes, but it's not systematic. And in your practice, it's kind of the foundation, not the foundation, but an important element. Can you elaborate on this practice?
Yes. So coming back to your question about practices that we use in Amrita Mandala to return this self-based existence to emptiness of phenomena, or selflessness in common terms, we use the two-part formula to have the first awakening experience, to open the first bhumi here from behind the eyes. And the reason why I'm pointing behind my eyes is because I've done this a number of times over the years of teaching, that when I've taught this practice and I have people sitting in the room And I asked them that if you have to point your finger to where yourself is, where this eye is, eventually they will point towards the center of their head, behind the eyes. So it's not in the heart, it's not in the throat, it's not down there in the body, it's not on the crown, but it's behind the eyes at the center of the head. So we have the so-called two-part formula to pop that, to shoot that dictator down from that throne. So, but that's just the first Bhumi, and then from Bhumi 2 onwards we have this. You could practice Sutra Vipassana, like is done by in many Buddhist methods. But in our system, Sutra Vipassana is like a supplementary practice. So we mainly practice Tantric Vipassana, which means that we have Guru mantras, which means inviting blessings of Mahasiddha Gurus. We have deities. On the path of wisdom and clarity, we have maybe 24 deities. Some of them are peaceful deities. They are healing deities, and most of them are wrathful deities. But so we have different mantras, Guru mantras, deity mantras.
And just for this one, because maybe the listeners won't know what it is, the deities or the protectors. And it's a question that everybody that interests in this question can have. What are these deities? Are they a real phenomenon, or is this an aspect of ourselves?
That's very good. You already gave me the answer, because they are aspects of our own true nature, our own Buddha nature, true nature. They are pure aspects of our true nature. And when I say aspect, sometimes I have this little jewel here. So it's, if you look at the whole thing, you could say that this jewel is a symbol for causal body, for example. But if we have a deity like Avalokiteshvara, for example, which is one of the main deities in Mahayana Buddhism, in Vajrayana Buddhism, you could say that we know that Avalokiteshvara is the embodiment of pure compassion, right? And compassion, you could say, is like in terms of quality, it's like a number of these. This jewel has been, it has many facets, it has many sides, right? So you could say that Avalokiteshvara represents like a number of facets. But then we have, for example, White Tara. Again, it's like a feminine aspect of Avalokiteshvara. Feminine means that it's a little bit sweeter, little bit richer, little bit gentler. Okay? Then we have, for example, Vajrasattva, which is the clarity aspect, the transparency of a diamond, which is very important. Vajrasattva and Prajnaparamita in our teachings are the main deities of that 11th Bhumi. 11th Bhumi. Then we have Saraswati, Vajradhara. Then we have specific aspects of Guru Rinpoche and Yeshe Chogyal in Kunzang Gyalpo and Dechen Gyalmo, who are like Guru Rinpoche in the form of a king, and Yeshe Chogyal in the form of a queen. And then, for example, wrathful deities, we have Dorje Drelo, which is Guru Rinpoche's wrathful emanation, holding a dagger, standing on a fierce tiger, flames all around, and so on and so on.
And
But yes,
what is their role? The protectors or the deities or the all this what in a pragmatic view, how is the role of using these aspects?
that is an excellent question. So, with peaceful deities, with all deities, so if we look at our minds, which relates to the subtle body, and in this case, the causal body, this sense of self or meanness is spread around the causal body in the countless channels. There are these small recordings of it. And then because pranic energy keeps flowing through the causal body, we have these thoughts in the mind, and when we have one thought, then we might associate to some other thought, then we remember something and something else, and then we have a thought. It keeps going on like this, as you know. And then when we work with deities, it means that when we are thinking of causal body, we are discussing maybe roughly 100,000 channels. So, different yogic classics, they give numbers such as 72,000 nadis, all the way up to 720,000 nadis. But, I usually say that if it's 100,000, it's something about that many. But this sense of self is spread out into this whole system. And the reason why we practice deities, and in these 24 deities in Amrita Mandala, is to access that self-delusion in all of its expressions, so that this delusion can be released from this whole subtle body. So that's how it works in any Buddhist tantra. That's how it works. So we are coming back to this jewel. So we are gradually, through these deity practices, through practices such as guru yoga, dynamic concentration, if we thought that this jewel was covered by dirt, it had dirt outside and dirt inside, and you simply remove that dirt, that sense of self, away, so that a pure diamond remains, so that the causal body is returned to its pristine condition. So this is how Tantra works in general.
And just one question about the diamond, because it's we can maybe ask the question, but it's a very theoretical one. It's very theory. Is the diamond forever? Is it something that lasts forever, or is it empty of?
Well, what does emptiness mean? Emptiness is a problematic word, in English word, but the Sanskrit word is shunyata. Shunya means zero, like 0, 1, 2, 3, or 0, -1, -2, -3. So the way how I like to explain this, for example, is that we have these self-centered thoughts, self-centered ideas, self-centered intentions and motivations. And this sense of self, it might be negatively charged. There might be some gross selfishness there, or there might be some you might be thinking about something like spoiled positive thoughts. So they are not selfless, they are not sincere in that sense, but kind of selfish, but having a different form. So whether you have negative or positive thoughts, and you have a problem with both because there is this sense of self in those thoughts. You remove that sense of self in either and return to zero. So you don't remain charged one way or the other. You don't stay stuck with whatever thought content you're having. You return to zero. And in that zero, there is no lasting self, no lasting persona. But this is actually, well, it's just a side comment, but a Buddhist master and a lineage that is very dear to me, very beloved to me, is the Jonang lineage. Masters like Dolpopa and Taranatha. This teaching also appears in Nyingma, in Longchenpa's expression. I think that the third Karmapa also expressed this, but Shakyamuni Buddha turned the wheel of Dharma 3 times. So first time he gave basic teachings, second time he gave the teaching of emptiness and compassion, but there is a third stage after emptiness and compassion, which is the Buddha nature, Tathagata Garbha teachings. And this is interesting because most people think that Buddhism, Mahayana Buddhism, is all about emptiness and compassion. It's all about wisdom. But that's actually only the second turning. After that comes this true self teaching. And true self, if I say that those 2 words to a Buddhist, they will get mad. But this is an exact quote from Dolpopa. He spoke about true self. So this is like an interesting how it relates to the 2 subtle bodies. Because in the causal body, you realize selflessness, emptiness of all phenomena. You return the self-charge into zero. But then when we start working with the astral body, then we start working with this, remember, this sense of self, this small deluded self, has already been released. It is no longer. And then after that, what then? Do you remain as a selfless being? Yes. But you also exist. You also have personality. You also have your own personal experiences, whether they have been bad, good or bad, traumatizing or healthy. You have all that. And this is what Dolpopa and the Buddha's third turning was referring to, this Buddha nature, that our psyche, I'm purposefully using the term psyche, it can also be purified, astral body can be purified, and then we come to a very important teaching of the Buddha and Buddhist masters, which is that we can come to this Buddhahood when the 2 subtle bodies have been purified completely, and then we only have pure and positive qualities.
Yes, is it the path of healing and light? Yes, because I have the sense that in mainstream Buddhism, even if it's very secret teachings, but today everything is open, that this aspect is really not it's not talked about. They say you are enlightened and that's it. And there's not a lot of talks about trauma or psyche. Could you elaborate on that because there's a seems that there's a lot of like maybe we can say spiritual bypassing on these questions.
Spiritual bypassing, unfortunately so. The thing is that I've come to, in my days of Zen Buddhism, I was mainly practicing shamatha meditation.
Mm.
And shamatha, as you know, is often translated as concentration practices. So shamatha, it's commonly explained that it means that you focus on something and you cultivate this mindfulness or when focusing on something, and it silences your mind, silences your body, silences your psyche, and that's pretty much it.
Mm.
But you know, in my days, I was practicing shamatha focusing on a point below my belly day and night. I didn't stop for 4 years doing that, and after those 4 years, figuratively speaking, my concentration was so good that I could have perhaps burned a hole in a paper,
Mm.
figuratively speaking. But then, you know, not much had changed in me in those 4 years of doing full-time training. So I'm not talking about meditating 1 or 2 hours a day.
Mm.
These were my retreat years when I spent time in a Zen monastery in Japan. And even when I was back at home in Finland, I was meditating 8 hours or more every day. So I was doing like a pretty consistent effort, but also pretty intensive
Mm.
training by myself. Um and over the years, my view of shamatha has changed quite a bit. I've kind of come to understand shamatha, the purpose of shamatha and purpose of vipassana uh, through my own experiences.
Mhm.
And with all respect, I think that the purpose of shamatha is misunderstood because it is often spoken as concentration practice. Yes, it is very useful to learn to concentrate and in that way gather your energy so that it doesn't get dispersed all the time, so that your mind is not running crazy like a crazy monkey all the time. But there is more to shamatha. And I think that, well, the reason why I teach shamatha as a healing practice
Mm.
is because if we do some basic embodied sitting meditation, whether we are talking about like Sutrayana practice or Mahamudra Chokchen type sitting, it doesn't matter. But consider this. So when you sit down and you are aware of your space inside the body, different areas of the body, the space inside legs, arms, space inside the torso, space inside the head. Instead of uh, starting to focus on something, start focusing on how good you feel.
Mm.
How there is this, when you call it, there is this sense of, there is a healing energy automatically. You know, what is beautiful about the human organism is that it has the ability to heal itself.
Mm.
You know, if we cut with a knife to our finger and blood comes out, the body knows how to heal itself. And it's just that same ability is in our subtle bodies, and specifically the astral body.
Mm.
Like I said previously, you know, it is the astral body that stores uh, psychological traumas. so psychic injuries. And I think that, just like you said, that this is not discussed, healing is not emphasized in most of Buddhism. As far as I know, in most lineages, this isn't much emphasized.
Yes,
But
there is one Rinpoche which is famous for healing shamatha, which is a
okay,
practice that is I interviewed him in the channel, and I did the translation of teachings that he gave in France, and he
oh,
has
brilliant.
but it's really really a tantric practice, because there's visualization, then the tigle, and it's very interesting. And so it's the only one I know that
Okay, okay.
speaks openly about it. So your perspective is really precious.
Yeah. What I have often thought about that, if all those people who practiced shamatha in whatever tradition or lineage or school of Buddhism, or even mindfulness, secular mindfulness, they would get so much more benefit out from their practice. Just, giving rise or giving birth, giving the innate healing ability of the body mind to do its thing. So yes, it is good to learn how to concentrate, but there is so much more. And one reason why this is my conclusion is because we have seen so many famous teachers in Mahayana Buddhism, Zen, in Vajrayana, who clearly are traumatized, have been traumatized. Maybe they used alcohol or drugs, or you know did other types of bad actions, harmful actions to their students, to people. And this is, we can see that this is trauma-based behavior.
Mm.
So concentration doesn't help with that. You need to heal if you have psychic injuries. I saw this already back in my days in Japan, in different monasteries, and the main place where I trained, that there were people who had been practicing for 20, 30 years, but then when they have some rage, for example,
Mm.
they completely lose it. They, part of their, you spoke about spiritual bypassing, that this part hadn't been included in their practice. And this is unfortunately, I think, very common, but it would be very easy to fix that mistake.
Mm.
Yeah.
There's two paths on three, but here we just talked about the two first, and uh, one should start with the wisdom and clarity, or with the healing one. What's the best? I know there's no best, but how do you decide?
Well, my recommendation is in Amrita Mandala, we have like fixed set of practices for both subtle bodies, for both paths. So I don't give like a do this, don't do that kind of advice. My advice would be to try both. And especially, we have the so-called trauma specials. I've taught these trauma special sessions. There's 5 or 6 sessions that I've taught, giving really basic but really effective trauma healing practices. These can all be found from YouTube, the
Mm.
trauma specials from Amrita Mandala channel. And my recommendation would be to, you know, do those trauma specials, find out if you have trauma. Some might already know that they have seen psychotherapist and they have a diagnosis. I have complex trauma, developmental trauma. So in that case, definitely go to trauma specials and follow the instructions there. Do those practices as many times as necessary until there is no effect anymore.
Mm.
So you outgrow those trauma healing practices. Alternatively, if somebody is really wants to, is really interested, has heard or read about awakening, non-dualism, awakening as it's discussed in Vipassana, in Mahamudra, in Dzogchen, then path of wisdom and clarity, two-part formula, and then all these practices that we have. So I don't have like a choose one or the other. Kind of get a taste first and then decide what do you want to finish first. But the thing is that you have to finish both eventually.
And maybe a little provocative question. How much time does it take? Maybe
Oh,
it's not the good attitude, but it's just for the sake of the question. Uh, how much time does it take to finish the two parts?
two paths. Okay. Well, at the moment, I think there has been 22 or 23 people in Amrita Mandala who have finished the 10 bhumis.
That's a lot. That's a
But
lot.
yeah, some of them stayed in the Sangha after that, and some of them felt that this is all they wanted from practice, and some of them left.
Mm.
But 22 or 23 in total. And of this number of people, I think the shortest one was this one gentleman in Canada called James, and his practice lasted, I think, 2 years and 2 months. But he's the fastest.
Oh, yes,
And then, huh?
it's really fast. It's,
Yeah. But this is what the training manuals, I've read some, I think was from some Mahamudra training manual. They give these figures.
mm,
So, at fastest, it's roughly 2 years. But then most of those 22 people has lasted something like 4 or 5 years.
mm.
I was the slowest of those.
Oh,
So, but it's because, I had to figure out the whole method, so it took me much longer.
yes. It's really interesting because it's a good motivation because some path seems very difficult, notably the sutra ones, because it's really, really long and with a lot of hours of commitment and a lot of negative side effects, maybe in the
Yes,
sutra.
yes. Yeah. But this is why it's so important to have bodhicitta and to have refuge, because we need refuge, whether we practice Sutrayana or Tantrayana, we need refuge. We need to have that. Refuge means that when you take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, in Tantra you also take refuge to Guru, first and foremost. So, for example, in our Buddhist Tantra, we take refuge in Guru Rinpoche. We also take refuge, we have this special fifth refuge of taking refuge in his pure land, Zangdok Paltry, copper-colored mountain. But it is so important whether you take Buddha, Dharma, Sangha or Tantric refuge, because it actually puts an energy in you that protects you. It protects you mainly from your own confusions, your own demons, but it also protects you from external harm, like accidents and so on. So it's extremely important to have refuge, and this is, it's not a good idea when some forms of secular Buddhism, they have dropped bodhicitta refuge. It is you're asking for trouble when you do that.
And there's a question linked with the refuge and with the uh, teachers, guru yoga, or deities. Does the initiation or empowerments essentials in this path? can someone take you have some free it's not some, it's really generous because it's the whole path I think, but it's a simpler maybe version. And can someone go and take this and follow this and go to the end of the path, or does the one has to take an empowerment?
So yes, we have main practices for both of these paths. We have rainbow body yoga on the causal body side, and then we have Amrita Kriya Yoga, which is a form of Kriya Yoga on astral body side. And those instructions are that are freely available, they are full instructions. But I give for the beginners who want to take up rainbow body yoga, I give them just Guru Yoga empowerment. So they use Guru Rinpoche's or Yeshe Tsogyal's mantras when they do that practice. And then after 2 years, when students show that they are serious about it, and when they have shown that they are sincere, they want to support our practice community, then they are given the deity empowerment, the first 12 deities. But to answer your question, I don't know if it's possible to go all the way to the whole path without empowerment. Theoretically, I don't see a problem there, but nobody has done it yet. So I don't know. But there was this Canadian lady called Christine, maybe 6, 7 years ago, who had practiced some Theravada meditation before. And then she found our website and our materials, and she started practicing Guru Yoga with Guru Rinpoche, and she was shouting the syllables, practicing dynamic concentration of Guru Rinpoche's Guru mantra. So she was shouting Na Mo Guru Rinpoche a bit more loudly. I'm just giving the rhythm. So that was her main practice, as well as generating bodhicitta, and then silently meditating after these exercises. And she had she was able to open all 13 bhumis. So she had 13 major awakening experiences, and I haven't read her account in many years. It's been a while, but she said that it completely changed her mind, completely changed her life. So she felt that she was really grounded and sober-minded, which she wasn't before.
Oh, she was very fortunate, maybe also.
I don't know, she didn't practice for so long, just maybe few months or something like that.
Okay,
But
okay.
but this is how I feel that, you know, based on my Zen history and based on what I know of other people's practice experiences, it is often the case that people take a practice and they are given some instructions. Instructions might be very good, or they might be lacking something. So the instructions might be incomplete, the teachings might be a bit poorly taught, so people don't exactly understand what they should be doing. And then people start practicing, but they don't, there is no shift from samsaric energy to energy of nirvana in their daily practice. So I think it should be that whether we practice 10 or 15 minutes, or if we practice 2 hours, we always should, whatever the practice is, to make our energy, make our mind shift. If that doesn't happen, then something is wrong, and that needs to be fixed, because then it might go 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years without much change in your mind. So I think that Dharma practice needs to give a fresh experience, a fresh view every day of practice.
Uh, we talk about the practices, and there's a, a kind of practice that you teach, but it's not the only one. It's the non-meditation. We can call it the Dzogchen meditation or the do nothing meditation, maybe, or just remaining in the natural state. And some traditions seems to say that, some teachers, that it's the only real practice, and that every other practices can be detrimental to our contact with our natural state, because we are manipulating stuff. So it's bad. And what's your take on that? Because it's in my view, it's a misunderstanding of the practice. But what's your take on this?
That view that practices are problematic or detrimental, this view has never been taught by great Mahasiddhas. Never. So that kind of already gives a clear answer. There is a reason why Mahasiddhas, they praise practices, praise deities, praise their gurus, and hold their gurus on pedestal, because they have received so many blessings and so much help. But if somebody is stubborn with this view that practices are bad and gurus are bad, what can you do? If, again, we were talking about merit, readiness and willingness. One interesting thing about samsara is that, and I think that the world of Dharma, world of Buddhism, world of Hinduism, it is largely a world of samsara. That there is so much delusion and mistakes and problems there. If you are very insistent and insisting that it is like this and it is not like that, it must be like this, and we need to avoid anything, then you are instantly in trouble. Why? Because you have a fixed stance. What is a fixed stance? Based on what do we take a fixed stance? In a belief of self. So if somebody says that, interesting, beautiful thing about samsaric existence is that our confusion and our pain teaches us. Sometimes we are so stubborn that, we refuse something that is obvious. We refuse, we want to be right, and we want others to be wrong. But then 1 year goes by, we still might feel that, oh, I really know this thing. I really know it. 5 years goes by, and maybe you start questioning, because you have been stuck for 5 years. Your mind has been stuck. Your energy hasn't been flowing for 5 years. 10 years goes by, and your hair is gray, and you are, losing your health, and time catches up with us. And in this way, sometimes we learn the hard way, and it might take a long time for us to realize what is obvious. But this is how merit eventually comes over lifetimes.
Yes. And to talk about another side of practices, because in classical tantras there are a lot of very complex practices with different kind of different sects of Tumo or 6 or 10 yogas, and it can be quite time consuming, you can say, because it's a lot of preliminaries, a lot of recitation, and a lot of time focusing on very subtle visualizations and feelings
Mm.
and generation and drops and all the stuff. And I have the sense that in your approach, it's simpler. And as a lazy person, uh, how do you manage to to come with these simpler practices that are efficient? Because it seems too good to be true.
Oh, yes. Well, first of all, no authentic yoga or dharma practice is based on belief. This is what Shakyamuni Buddha told us, and often people ignore this completely. But he said that you must analyze everything. You must analyze and pay attention, be aware of your own reactions, but also your own judgments. And whatever we are dealing with external world, whether it is about some practice or some method or some teacher or another teacher, we need to keep analyzing. We need to keep thinking and contemplating. This is unfortunately often when people, usually the first question Buddhists ask, does a teacher have a lineage?
Mm,
What is the lineage of this teacher? And then uh, if a teacher has a certificate, a
mhm.
paper to show, and a photo, I have had Dharma transmission in this and this temple from this Zen master or from this Rinpoche in Dharamsala 5 years ago, then they say, okay, authentic teacher, authentic teacher. But if you ask me, if you then start believing that whatever this teacher teaches you is authentic, it's problematic based on what Shakyamuni Buddha told us to do. I don't think it is, with much respect and love, I I have many friends who are teachers in different lineages. I have practiced with many teachers and masters of different lineages. But if I really ask myself how many of those teachers really were excellent teachers, were able to teach and help their students to understand what they're doing and teach practices that really took their practice to flight,
Mm.
like an airplane. Not that many. Few teachers were really excellent teachers. But if I then ask that, how many of them, all those roshis and lamas and rinpoches, were really authentic in terms of energy, forgetting if they are lineage holders, if they have a monastery, if they have a throne, if they have a whatever external proofs, again, not
Mhm.
many. So, this is the point that Shakyamuni Buddha was saying 2,500 years ago. Uh, well, it's an interesting case, his own case. He didn't have he studied with, I forgot the name of his Hindu teacher. He had a teacher who taught him jhana
Yes.
meditation.
There were two, I think.
Yeah,
Maybe. Yeah,
something like Alara Kalama or something like this
I
was
don't
the name.
remember.
But as a Buddhist teacher, he didn't have a certificate. He didn't have a like a or how do you say that authentication. And this is also the case in actually, ironically, in Rinzai Zen, the Zen master Hakuin, who is the greatest Zen master the past 500 years, he didn't have an authentication. He stayed with his teacher for 9 months. 9 months. And then he stayed in other temples, but the rest he figured out himself. And he became the greatest Zen master of modern times.
Mm.
Uh, so this is an interesting point, that what is really authentic. And were you asking about authentic practices? I'm sorry, I forgot you.
The question was also about because your there's tantric practices, classical ones,
Right? Yeah.
chakra samvara or
Mhm.
maybe Vajrayogini, but it's a little bit easier easier. But
Mm.
you see, and your teachings, your seems to be uh, uh, less time consuming and less difficult, less um,
Less
uh,
complex.
less complex. But I don't have the sense that it's less efficient, and it seems too good to be true because it's and uh, i- how did you come with these simple practices that seems they seem perfectly logical, perfectly pragmatic, and it seems uh, maybe rational and very common sense practices, and
Yes.
it's but powerful. How did you do it?
Well, of course, I couldn't have done any of it without my masters. That's one thing. And that's the most important thing. Most important. I couldn't have done anything without my masters. So that's, I want to make that perfectly clear. But after that, um, um, Dharma always needs to, if you ask me, Dharma always needs to be commonsensical.
Mm.
It needs to make sense. Something like emptiness, for example. There are so many commentaries of emptiness speaking about confusing a rope to a snake, or analyzing if a chair exists on its own. And I don't think it's very helpful. I think that if somebody tries to explain the point of emptiness like that with respect, I don't think that person understands it. So emptiness or selflessness is extremely simple, and so is anything else in Dharma. I was reminded by this when you spoke about very elaborate and complex tantric formulas. I was reminded about this story that I heard many years ago, and there was this student of Tantra who wanted to attend this large empowerment teachings of some High Lama. And these empowerment teachings lasted for 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Okay? Like these big empowerments. But then the student, maybe his mother got sick or something, so he had to stay and take care of his mother. And then when he went to the empowerment teachings, he could only attend for 2 last days. So he didn't get the whole thing. He only got a small part. And then he was kind of troubled by it. What do I do now? Because now I don't know anybody who can give me this empowerment and these practices. And then he received an advice that go to meet this one lama from the same lineage. Go to meet this one lama and request that empowerment. And he went to see the lama. He requested sincerely that, please, lama, can you please give me these teachings, this empowerment? And the lama said, of course. And then they first had tea, maybe had a piece of candy or something. And then the lama said, I will give you now the empowerment. And the young student started thinking that, what? Just this will take 2 or 3 weeks. And we just start like this. We didn't prepare an altar. We didn't prepare tormas. We didn't prepare any of these things. I'm not even wearing my robe now. What's going to happen? And the Lama gave the same empowerment in 15 minutes without anything lacking. And that was it. So something that is interesting is that I see that you have a guitar behind you.
Yeah, I've got another, but it's hidden because it's a more expensive one.
Okay. I also have guitars in the house. And this is a good analogy. You can make music with 5 notes. You can make really beautiful music with 5 notes. All blues music is 5 notes.
That's true.
Or then you can make more complex music with 12 notes. All notes in the octave. Doesn't mean that the more complex music is better or more evolved than the 5 note music. Both are music, and you can make great music with both. So if one understands the underlying principles, the 3 kayas, the practice principles of samatha and vipassana, bodhicitta, refuge, dedication of merit, all these things, then you don't need to, you can just say, may all beings be free. May all beings be free. May all beings be free. One sentence bodhicitta prayer, instead of having to read 5 pages of bodhicitta prayer. This is the principle. That's how Amrita Mandala is a bit different.
And I've got a question. If someone wants to start, and maybe it's someone with a background or no background, what's the first step if he sees this interview and he says, "Oh, I want to put my first step on this path." What should he do, or he or she?
Well, in general, whether one is a beginner or whether one is already has been practicing for some time, it is always necessary for us to educate ourselves and keep educating ourselves about yoga and dharma in general. I always say this to my students that please read books, please go see other teachers. If somebody has time limitation, then just do like a weekend course every now and then with other teachers. So it doesn't necessarily mean that start practicing seriously with other teachers, but I recommend my students to keep an open mind and keep educating themselves. And then after that, understand the 4 noble truths. And through understanding Four Noble Truths, suffering and the way out of suffering or confusion, then understand your motivation for practice. Is your motivation to sleep a bit better, have a bit more peaceful mind, something like this, kind of simple, which is fine? Or is it to take yogic practice seriously in the sense that I want to really see if it is possible to go through these bhumis, this awakening process, purification process. I want to see if it is really possible to heal my psychological trauma, something like this. Or then somebody might be from the start, might be have the, how do you say, highest motivation to attain Buddhahood, full enlightenment for the benefit of others. So this is like a basic Four Noble Truths motivation. Know why you practice. And then when you know why you practice, start practicing. We have lots of material online. We have, like we discussed, our main practices, Rainbow Body Yoga and Amrita Kriya Yoga, are freely available. Anybody is welcome to try those practices. And then if after maybe 1 month of trying, after 2 months of trying, then it's good to ask yourself, is this really something that I want to do? Is this really something that seems to work? And then if it works, if that's something you want to do, just keep doing it. And, we have retreats almost every month. Nowadays, we have all the retreats, training sessions are online, and some retreats are also in person, live retreats. So if you want to follow this path, start joining retreats. Start practicing together with myself and other Sangha members.
Yeah, I like how you present this because it's quite freeing to hear a spiritual master saying that oh, you can go and read books and go to other teachers because on the very strict schools or very traditional schools like in the Kagyu or in the Geluk or maybe they say, oh, don't go, they don't prevent you to go, but they say, oh, it's better not to go and see other teachers because it will confuse you. And I'm not, I disagree with this point because one can have a different perspective on the same subject and they can have an insight just by seeing from the outside. And
Yes.
so it's really um, nice to hear that.
And the reason why I think that way is because I've attended so many teachings by so many different types of teachers in India, in Japan, in Europe, often arranged teachings for other teachers. So I've received so many different types of benefits, and the benefits might not only be like something that you can directly use in your own mind training. It might be like, oh, I see that you might see some little issues, little mistakes, something that could be a little bit off or a total mistake. You can pick up something along the way. And this is also great learning. And this is one thing that is really important in the path is disillusionment. Disillusionment. So becoming disillusioned about, of course, oneself, one's delusions, one's dreams and fantasies, sometimes, totally crazy things going on in our mind, like thinking all kinds of things, but also disillusionment about, understanding, kind of filtering what is the true meaning and purpose of Dharma. Not believing in something just because there is fancy walls and fancy paintings and all kinds of external things. I love those things. I love paintings and decoration and all that, but that is just art. That is art. And so disillusionment is very important, becoming disillusioned about different kinds of things so that you come to understand what Dharma is really about.
For the last part of the interview, could you talk a little about the bliss aspect? I think you talked about a third path, which
Yes.
bliss, and can you talk about, a little bit about this? It seems very interesting.
Very happy to. Well, so we have the third path of the path of health and great bliss, which in Amrita Mandala means mostly refers to physical practices, but also practices that, when we have purified causal body, astral body, and then physical, we join the physical body as a continuum of the three bodies to attain or realize the so-called light body or rainbow body. So physical body, there are two different interpretations of this. I just recently heard a head Kagyu Lama, who I respect greatly, very, very, very nice Lama, realized Lama. He was saying that Sutra, Tantra, and Chokchen all have the same result. And I've heard this being said by other sources also, traditional sources. And it is kind of right. You could say that, but it is also not exactly like that from the perspective of the three bodies. So it is fine, our karmic causes, all karmic causes are in the two subtle bodies. So when you remove selfishness in all forms and self-based confusion in all forms from the two subtle bodies, without necessarily doing anything with the physical body, without changing, transforming the physical tissues, this is still Buddhahood. This is full enlightenment. But Dzogchen teachings are a bit different here because they also concern the physical tissues, like you mentioned briefly in this interview that often Dzogchen masters, when they pass away, their physical bodies shrink or completely disappear. And there has been examples of both in the past 20, 30 years. So there has been yogis who have completely disappeared physically, no physical corpse left behind. But so we have in Amrita Mandala, we have this path of health and great bliss to not only to keep the body healthy. In many spiritual training systems, there is no physical training, and this makes the body weak. If you have weak muscles, weak tissues, unflexible joints, your life will not be that comfortable. As you get, I'm 45 years old now, so I already have a little bit taste of that if you are in a poor shape or overweight, your muscles are weak, not to even imagine of somebody who's 60 years old, 70 years old, 80 years old. You simply need as healthy body as possible to have a comfortable moment to moment experience. So health is very important in Amrita Mandala, and that is largely because of my late Zen master, Terayama Roshi, who was really big on physical practices, physical expression of Zen. And then great bliss, it refers to this light body, rainbow body phenomenon. The term great bliss is my translation of the term Mahasukha. In Buddhism, they commonly speak of three kayas, but sometimes they speak of other kayas, Svabhavika kaya and Mahasukha kaya, just to mention a couple. So Mahasukha kaya, I chose this term to refer to this rainbow body or light body attainment and physical practices. In general, about bliss, I remember many years ago reading, I think Mahamudra masters speaking about what kind of bliss is problematic in meditation practice, is unhelpful, and what is authentic bliss. And I remember that, gosh, I can't remember who Mahamudra master that was, but I remember a categorization of 4 or 5 types of bliss, where there was gross bliss, like a drunkening bliss. You can do some breathing practices and chandali practices that make you feel really kind of blissful and drunk. But this is problematic. If you think that that is the kind of bliss you have to be focusing, you will get stuck. But then there is one type of bliss that is the blissful aspect of the natural state, and it is called Sahaja Ananda. Sahajananda. So Sahaja means spontaneous, something that is naturally part of our basic awareness, our basic state. So it is, of course, the clarity aspect of our nature, then this blissfulness and softness, natural kindness, natural compassion, natural love, as well as the natural peacefulness, natural groundedness. These 3 aspects, head clear, heart soft and kind, gut and the rest of the body resting in peacefulness, these are the 3 main aspects of our basic state, directly relating to the 3 kayas, Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, Nirmanakaya, the Dantian in the head, heart and gut. And this directly refers to the 3 bodies, causal, astral, physical, and these together constitute rainbow body.
Wow. And
That's how I think. That's how I feel.
it's really clear. It's really it has sense, and it seems logical if we are in this view of meditation and tantra and spiritual practices. For my last question, and maybe the most difficult one, or maybe not. What does it feel like to have all boomies opened and perfected, and all the systems cleaned? Um, is it how can someone know that he has attained these realizations, and how does it feel like?
Well, how does it feel like? How does it feel like having clear mind and sober head all the time? How does it feel like? It's not a special experience. It's simply, you know, the gift of realization of emptiness is that we believe in this sense of self. We believe in it and we are invested in it. And then we have these constant thoughts and thought associations and dream images and fantasies. And it makes our energy murky and it makes our mind unclear. That's simply how it is. You cannot have a self-based existence and have a clear mind.
Mm.
You cannot have that. So, um, how does it feel like? Um, this is if somebody wants to know what this clarity is like, you refer to dynamic concentration practices that we do in Amrita Mandala once or twice in this interview. And I think dynamic concentration, which is little bit practiced in Nyingma school of Buddhism. I spoke with one of my good friends, is Lama John Hogue, who is the first Duchamp Rinpoche's close disciple and translator. And we've spoken about this, among other things, with him. And he suspects that in the early days of Nyingma and Chokchen, they used to do rhythmical shouting. Not just shout once or twice, hung pets, but shout 300, 500,000 times, like we do in Amrita Mandala. So a very easy way to get a taste of this clarity versus unclarity of mind, maybe do a little practice. Can I demonstrate this a
Oh,
little bit?
yes, please, please.
So I will just choose a simple mantra. Namo Guru Rinpoche. So a very simple mantra of Guru Rinpoche's. Namo Guru Rinpoche. And I will shout these syllables, let's say half a minute, which is very short actually, but I just demonstrate for you to get some sense how it is done. In your home practice, if you want to try this, shout those syllables for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, or 5 minutes with a very relaxed body, relaxed mind. Don't do this. It is not an angry practice. It is a very relaxed, kind of like a professional boxer. They are very relaxed, but when they punch, it is sharp. So like that. So it needs to be very relaxed, because if you are kind of trying to be angry, it is counterproductive. It is not helpful. So in your home practice, you can do this 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, and after that, just sit in a relaxed way. So I will shout the syllables for half a minute. Na mo gu ru rin po che. 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 Na mo gu, ru, rin, po, che, na, mo, gu, ru, rin, po, che. After shouting, completely relax and don't do anything. Just sit for a while, not doing anything, not doing anything. And see how different the mind state is before and after. What happens as a result, why shouting practices, why we can apply dynamic type of concentration. The special benefit of that is that we are not practicing gentle type of concentration where you are focusing on something in a very gentle manner, and then when you get distracted, returning like this. This is same principle of concentration, same application, but there is much more volume in terms of dynamicity. And then we express that dynamicity through voice. And what happens consequentially, we could also, sometimes our Sangha members, they have a problem. My wife and my children are already sleeping. How do I shout then?
It
You
was
can
my
shout.
question.
Yes, I also do this, but when my spouse, when she goes to sleep, usually quite early, and our dog and cat, I also have this problem, and then I shout like this. So the action in the body is exactly the same, but you just don't produce the physical sound. You whisper it, but there is that same action of sharp focus, and the result is the same. So what happens? Why do we feel clear-minded, sober-minded after doing this? The reason is that we have been talking about subtle bodies. So the sense of self and all selfishness, anxiety, fear, all these emotions are creating this big system of samsaric energies running. So in our astral body and causal body in the aura, all this is happening. So it's not a diamond that is naturally radiating rainbows. And because it is in a messy condition, when we apply concentration like that repeatedly, maybe 200 shouts, maybe 500, sometimes I shout 1500, maybe like 12 minutes, 15 minutes. Consequentially, it creates a hole in the aura, or it opens up the whole energy body. So momentarily, all these negative selfish habits and patterns, they subside. It's kind of like if sky has many thick clouds. We can't see the sun, and we shout and clouds disappear. Then there is only the light and radiance of the sun. It is exactly like that. And it works for everybody. No matter who you are, it works.
And it seems less dangerous than some full core practices where you you jump and you bump on the pillow and without breathing because you just stop your breathing, and it's quite acrobatic. But I have the feeling that it's maybe the same taste or the same principle. That is to say, to clear up
Yes,
for a moment and to have a sense of what it is to be in a more clearer state.
yes, 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 exactly so. So something that happens when we do shouting practice is that our energy system opens up, but it also, whether we are doing it with Guru Rinpoche, and there is Guru Rinpoche's blessings involved, or Yeshe Chogyal's possibly, or Milarepa's, Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche's, who is very dear to me, uh, or if we are practicing with some Hindu Mahasiddha like Babaji or Agastya, these really famous masters. Um, at the same time, because of that dynamic focus, our subtle body, their blessings, their blessing energy gets, what is that English word? It gets kind of like injected
Mm,
into the subtle channels. So it's a same happens when you do gentle focus.
mm,
Same happens, but it's much, much slower. And also my experience of gentle focus in samatha practices is that it never opens up the aura.
mm,
It cannot do that because samatha is about sustained concentration. It's a very different function. But if you keep kind of like volume volume meter in stereo system,
mm,
you keep doing this with the volume meter, it's a very different function. It cannot but open up the
mm.
subtle body. It's simple as that.
I hope that listeners will try, and it's quite I think it worth it was the try, because uh, it's harmless, and
Yes,
if there's results, it's all benefits. So that's perfect. Um,
yeah,
I will thank you very much for this um, all these offerings, these teachings, um, and I hope that the listeners will go to your website, which is really clear, really pro, and really complete, and it explains a lot of things. It's in English, or maybe there's other language, or is it in only in English?
uh, we used to, I'm not even sure if the German website still
Mm.
exists, but at least we have one in English.
Okay, that's okay. And I will try to put the video online maybe in 1 month, because I have to do the translation and the subtitles, and I'm a very slow and lazy person. So it's a
It's
joke.
okay.
I'm slow. That's true. And but thank you very much, and we stay in contact
Yeah.
if you want, and I hope that you have a wonderful evening.
Thank you very much, Ludovic. Thank you for the invitation, and thank you for your kind words.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.